When I take medicine for a headache, how does it know where to go?
When you have a headache or a toothache or any other kind of ache, you take a pain reliever like aspirin, and a few minutes later, the pain is gone.
Why does everyone look different?
Genes inherited from your parents decide how you look. They determine the color of your eyes, skin, hair, and so much more. They decide how your face will look, how your body will be shaped, and how tall you will grow. There are thousands and thousands of these influential genes inside each one of us. When you first began, a sperm cell from your father carrying half the genes that you would inherit fertilized an egg cell from your mother, which had the other half. These two sets of genes contained all the information needed to create a new human being. So the genes you inherited from your mother gave you some of your features, while the genes you got from your father gave you others. Or their genes may have combined to give you traits that are controlled by many genes. The random mix of genes explains why you may resemble your parents but still have a special look all your own. And it also explains why brothers and sisters can look so different from each other. People from all over the world may look very different from one another, too. Some have very dark skin and curly hair. Others have almond-shaped eyes and dark, straight hair. Still others have light skin, hair, and eyes. The ancestors of these people came from different parts of the world, where distinct genes not shared by other people were inherited and passed on. Still, the number of genes that make people of the world look different is very small compared to the huge number that we all share as human beings.
Why does a beach get bigger and smaller at different times of the day?
Throughout the day and night, the level of water in the world's oceans and other large bodies of water rises and falls. This change is due to tides, which are caused by the gravitational pull of the moon on Earth as our planet rotates on its axis. Water on the part of Earth directly facing the moon bulges as the moon's gravity pulls it, creating high tide, or high water levels. On the opposite side of Earth, a secondary, smaller high tide occurs, again related to the gravitational pull of the moon. So at any given time during the day or night as the planet rotates, there are two high tides and two low tides, and all the levels in between, in the large bodies of water that cover Earth. High tides occur every 12 hours and 26 minutes, which is a bit more than half the time it takes Earth to make a complete turn on its axis. That extra 26 minutes comes from the fact that the moon is moving as well. It rotates around Earth once every 30 days or so. while the pull of the moon's gravity is only strong enough to change the levels of the oceans about 2 feet. Tides can make a bigger difference near a coast. At low tide, when water levels are least affected by the gravity of the moon, you may be able to walk far out on a beach. While at high tide, the beach may be almost completely covered by water. The Bay of Fundy, located in Canada, has the biggest difference in water levels between high and low tides, more than 40 feet.
What is a mammal?
A mammal is an animal that belongs to the highest class of vertebrates. A vertebrate is an animal that has a backbone and a spinal cord. The other types of vertebrates are birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. Human beings are mammals. All female mammals give birth to live young, with the exception of the platypus duck and the spiny anteater, which reproduce by laying eggs. But regardless of how their babies are born, all female mammals nurse their young with milk, which they produce from mammary glands. A mammal is warm-blooded, which means that its body temperature is internally regulated and constant, and does not change with different surroundings. Most mammals are covered either partially or completely with hair or fur, as opposed to the scales of reptiles and fish and the feathers of birds. Mammals also share certain features in their bone structure, muscles, and even cells that separate them from other vertebrates. When we think of wild animals, farm animals, or pets, we usually think of creatures that belong to the mammal class. Chimpanzees, elephants, bears, horses, pigs, dogs and cats, and countless other land animals are all mammals. Some mammals also live in unexpected places, whales and dolphins, for example, are uniquely adapted to spend their lives in the water. They have fish-like, hairless bodies, and their limbs have been modified into flippers. But unlike their fish neighbors, these mammals have air-breathing lungs instead of water-breathing gills. Bats, the only true flying mammals, spend much of their time in the sky. Their wings are made of skin stretched from their very long fingers along the sides of their bodies to their hind legs and tails.
Why does head hair grow longer than other hair on the body?
Hairs have a particular lifespan before they fall out. With a lifespan of about 2 to 5 years, head hair grows longer than other hair on your body. Eyebrow hairs, on the other hand, have a lifespan of just 3 to 5 months. If you stopped cutting the hair on your head, you could get it to grow to about your waist before hairs would start to fall out, and new hairs began to grow to replace them. A few people, however, can grow their hair much longer than that. A woman in India holds the record for the longest hair, 13 feet, 10.5 inches.
Why are men's and women's bicycles built differently?
The crossbars on bicycle frames give them added strength. On a man's or boy's bike, the crossbar extends straight across the top of the frame, just below the seat. On a woman's or girl's bike, the crossbar is attached to the seat tube at an angle, far below the seat. Because of this structure, women's bikes are not nearly as sturdy as men's bikes. When bicycles were first built, women didn't wear pants, they always wore skirts or dresses. The low crossbars on their bikes allowed them to get on, ride, and get off with dignity without showing their underwear. The design of bicycles for women and girls, then, is based on a long-standing tradition and still offers the advantage of easier mounting and dismounting. But today, women and girl bicyclists wear pants or shorts when riding and can easily use bikes designed for men. As a matter of fact, serious female bicyclists who do a lot of riding or travel through tough terrain and need bikes with sturdier frames by those made for men.
How do farmers keep animals from eating their crops?
Farmers keep animals away from their crops in a number of ways. Birds are probably the biggest wildlife pests because they feed on seeds before they have a chance to grow. And they eat developing food plants. Because loud noises and the presence of predators and people frighten birds. Farmers have used things like scarecrows and models of bird predators, like hawks hung from poles or trees to try to keep hungry creatures away. Devices called bird scarers, which make repeated, loud, shotgun-like bangs, are also used. But before scarers were invented, it was usually the job of farm children to stand in fields, in all kinds of weather, using wooden clappers, rattles, and other noisemakers to keep birds away from crops. Other crop enemies in the animal world are insects. Sometimes insect damage can be controlled by introducing beneficial insects that eat the bugs causing the problem. But generally farmers take stronger measures, like spraying chemical insecticides that poison the pests. Sprayers pulled by tractors are usually used, though airplanes, crop dusters, can spray a large field very quickly.
How does money circulate?
After new money is printed at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the United States Treasury Department ships it to the 12 Federal Reserve banks that are spread throughout the country. The reserve banks then distribute the cash to commercial banks and other institutions where people keep their money. Customers withdraw cash from banks and spend it on gas, food, books, and so on. Eventually the stores deposit the bills back at the bank, and the process begins again.
When did the 21st century begin?
As the end of the year 1999 approached, people all over the world began preparing for huge celebrations. To mark the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st. This changeover was particularly significant as it also began a new millennium, or 1,000-year period. Many people pointed out, however, that the new century and the new millennium would begin not on January 1, 2000, but on January 1, 2001. The first year of the Christian era was not the year 0. It was the year 1 AD. Therefore, the first century, or 100-year period, ended at the beginning of the year 101. Fast forward 20 more centuries, and the 21st century, and the third millennium officially began on January 1, 2001. That information didn't stop people from throwing gigantic parties on December 31, 1999. It just meant that the following year could provide an additional excuse for gala celebrations.
How long can trees live?
It was long thought that the giant sequoias, Sequoiadendron giganteum, that grow along the middle Pacific coast of the United States were the oldest living trees in the world. Some are nearly 4,000 years old. But a few decades ago it was discovered that another conifer tree that grows in North America is even older. The bristlecone pine tree, found in Nevada, Arizona, and Southern California. The oldest known living tree of this kind is 4,600 years old.
How does a refrigerator keep food cold?
When a liquid evaporates, or changes into a gas, it absorbs heat from the things around it. That principle explains why you feel cooler when you sweat. The liquid perspiration removes body heat as it evaporates into the air. The opposite occurs: a gas gives off heat when it changes into a liquid. These two principles are used in most refrigeration systems. Refrigerators are cooled by a special fluid, refrigerant, that is easily changed into a gas or vapor and then back into a liquid again. Compressing the refrigerant, squeezing it into a smaller space than it would normally occupy, makes it take on its liquid form, and it is pumped through evaporator tubes inside a refrigerator. As it changes back to a gas there, it absorbs heat from the food and air inside, cooling the refrigerator's interior. The warmed vapor is pumped outside the refrigerator, by a compressor, and through condenser tubes, where it releases heat into the air as it turns into a liquid again. That heat is the warm air you feel at the back or bottom of a refrigerator. The cycle continues as the refrigerant travels in and out, carrying heat away and keeping food cold. A thermostat set at a certain temperature turns an electric motor on and off. The motor circulates the refrigerant, keeping the right amount of coolness inside the refrigerator. Air conditioners work in a similar way.
How could the world run smoothly if no one kept his or her word?
Once in a while, though, you have to tell a secret in order to protect someone, including yourself. If a friend tells you confidentially that he or she is doing something harmful, for example, then you have to break your promise of secrecy and tell a grown-up, who will know what should be done about the situation. In such a case, the safety of other people is more important than your promise of trust.
Why don't predators of poisonous snakes die from eating venom?
When animals that feed on poisonous snakes eat their prey, they also eat the venom that snake has stored up. But this venom that would kill other animals does not kill the snake's predator. Why? Because these predators have a built-in resistance to the venom of the snakes they eat. An opossum can eat a rattlesnake, venom and all, and only suffer a mild reaction. The same amount of venom that goes into the opossum's stomach would be enough to kill a horse.
What is ozone?
Ozone is a sharp-smelling gas that is a form of oxygen. There is a layer of ozone in the upper atmosphere, about 15 miles, 25 kilometers, above Earth. That layer helps protect us from the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. Without the ozone layer, too many of those rays would get through, making it difficult for plants and animals to live. During the 1970s, scientists became aware that certain chemicals, called chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, were making the ozone layer thin and even causing some holes. CFCs were used in aerosol cans, air conditioners, and refrigerators. By the mid-1990s, the United States and many other countries had banned the use of CFCs. Ozone also exists in the lower atmosphere. But while the ozone in the upper atmosphere is beneficial, that in the lower atmosphere causes air pollution. When sunlight interacts with the fumes from cars and trucks, ozone is the main ingredient of the smog that is produced. In large amounts, ozone can cause headaches, itchy eyes, and lung problems in people. It can also harm other animals and plants. And it damages rubber tires and the outside surfaces of buildings.
Why do I cry when I'm unhappy or hurt myself?
Scientists don't really know why we cry when we're unhappy or hurt, or sometimes, even joyful. But tears help express deeply felt emotions and often release stress and tension from the body. From our earliest days, when we were babies and could not yet communicate through language. Crying let the people around us know that we needed something. Frequently, even after we become older. Crying still serves as a wordless signal that something help or comfort is needed. In places all over the world, no matter what language is spoken, crying expresses emotions that are easily understood by all.
How can blind people read books?
Many blind people read specially printed books using the Braille system. Developed by a French boy named Louis Braille in 1824. Braille, who became blind when he was 3 years old, was only 15 when he modified a code used by the military for reading in the dark. Braille's new system involved raised dots that stood for letters, numbers, punctuation symbols, and words. There are 63 characters in the Braille code, each one a unique combination of 1 to 6 raised dots. Once blind people have learned the Braille alphabet, they can read Braille books by lightly touching the book's pages with their fingers. Some people who become blind later in life, after having learned to read, prefer to use a system that incorporates the alphabet they are familiar with rather than learning Braille. A device called the optacon can be used with regular books. It enlarges and raises each letter, which the blind person can then feel with her fingers and read. Another way for blind people to discover the content of a book is through talking books, which are recordings of entire books, novels, school books, and so on that can be played back on cassette or compact disc players. Optical scanners are another way to translate printed materials into sounds. These computers scan a page from a book or magazine, and a computer-generated voice reads the material aloud.
What do B, C and AD mean?
B. C stands for before Christ, while AD is short for the Latin phrase Anno Domini, which means in the year of the Lord. Some mistakenly believe those letters to stand for after death. These designations, established around AD 523 by a monk named Dionysius Exiguus, mark the year of Jesus Christ's birth as the beginning of the Christian era. Everything that happened before Jesus Christ was born is labeled as BC. And everything after is considered to be part of the Christian era and is labeled as AD. The years before the birth of Christ count down, or are counted backwards, to his birth, ending in 1 BC. The Christian era begins. With the year AD 1, there was no year 0. Fairly soon after Dionysius's system was put in place, discoveries were made that showed he had miscalculated the year of Jesus Christ's birth. But in spite of his error, his system remains the standard in use around the world. This system of counting years is based on the Christian religion, and yet it is used even in countries that have citizens of other religions. Many people prefer that non-religious terms should be used, with the abbreviations BCE or before Common Era, replacing BC and CE or Common Era, replacing AD. But the usage of BC and AD are still far more common than any alternatives.
Why do butterflies and other insects fly from flower to flower?
Butterflies and other insects fly from one plant to the next to feed on the sweet nectar and sometimes the pollen located in the interior of flowers. The sugar in nectar supplies insects with the energy they need. And pollen contains protein, fat, vitamins, and minerals. In the process of feeding, many insects transfer pollen which sticks to their bodies from one plant's flower to another. Pollen, which is a fine powdery grain from a flower's male reproductive organ, must be transferred to the female reproductive organ of a flower for fertilization to take place and seeds to form.
Why does your shadow change shape during a sunny day?
It has to do with the location of the sun and the angle of the light waves that hit you. When the sun is high in the sky, the angle of its light waves in relation to you produce a short, squat shadow. When the sun is low in the sky, early or late in the day, it produces a long, giant-sized shadow. One way to think about this concept is to pretend you could draw a line from the sun that schemes the top of your head and ends on the ground behind you. When the sun is right above you, that line will end very close to your body, and so will your shadow. When the sun is low during evening hours, that line, and your shadow, will end farther behind you.
Why are pigs so dirty?
Because pigs will eat almost anything, they have traditionally been fed with farm leftovers and waste. This unappealing diet, commonly known as slop, may contain food waste from a farm household or the unusable byproducts of the manufacturing processes for things like butter and cheese and even beer brewing. Pigs are natural foragers, frequently using their snouts to dig up roots or grubs for food when they are in the wild. On farms they are fed from low troughs, but their big snouts and foraging habits still make them very messy eaters. Adding to the dirty reputation of pigs is the fact that they have usually been kept in pens or sties, close to farm buildings to make their feeding quick and easy. They and their messes have been confined to small spaces. Unlike cows and sheep, which are free to roam pasture land. Because pigs are raised mainly for their meat and fat, they are given a lot of food and spend most of their time eating. Piglets that weigh only a few pounds at birth can reach more than 200 pounds. 90 kilograms, in less than half a year.
Why is cloning so controversial?
The possibility of cloning human beings arouses curiosity and excitement in some people and deep suspicion and fear in others. Scientists and doctors have long intervened in the creation of new life, such as using various fertility treatments to help people have babies who otherwise couldn't. But these techniques require doctors to assist in the process that happens in nature, the merging of a sperm cell from a man's body with an egg from a woman's body. Cloning bypasses that process altogether, using one person's cells to create a new human being that will be identical to that person. That level of scientific involvement in the creation of human life makes many people uncomfortable. Supporters of cloning technology argue that there are numerous benefits to human cloning. Many scientists believe that cloning can lead to important breakthroughs for people with incurable diseases. This type of activity, called therapeutic cloning, has as its goal the creation of certain kinds of cells rather than the duplication of a complete person. In such experiments, a human embryo, the group of cells that, if implanted into a uterus, would grow into a baby, would be produced through cloning so that the embryo's stem cells, special cells that can develop into many different kinds of cells and tissue, can be extracted, destroying the embryo in the process. Stem cells can then be used to grow new tissue to replace a sick person's damaged organs or to cure diseases that otherwise would be fatal. Some scientists wish to pursue cloning technology to create babies for people who are unable to have children, and who wish to produce a child that shares their genetic makeup rather than adopting a baby. Many people have deeply felt concerns about cloning, particularly human cloning. They fear that this relatively new science is still too risky and unpredictable. Experiments with cloning a human might result in serious defects or health problems for the cloned subjects. Even Ian Wilmut, the scientist who led the team that produced the cloned sheep dolly, has strongly objected to experimenting with human cloning before further research is done. Many people object to cloning on religious grounds, arguing that life is sacred, and only God, not scientists and doctors, can create new life. Others worry that the ability to clone a person might be abused by some who would spend a great deal of money to create a genetically perfect child, selecting certain traits and discarding others. Many people are disturbed by the thought that some people might use cloning technology to replace a loved one who had died. Canadian.
What is a single parent?
A single parent is either a mother or a father who raises her or his children alone without being married or in a long-term, committed relationship. This situation usually happens because the parent divorces or the parent's husband or wife dies. but some people decide ahead of time to raise a child without the help of a partner. For at least a part of their lives. Almost half of the children in the United States are raised by a single parent. While many people picture the typical family as two parents and their kids, that view of the family doesn't match up with the way numerous people are raised today. Some people have two parents who live together. Some people's parents are divorced, some only have one parent. And some kids are raised by grandparents or aunts and uncles. Or by foster parents who take care of them when their biological parents can't. A family can be defined in many ways, and the most important thing is to be raised by people who love and support you. Rather than trying to fit in with anyone's definition of a typical family.
Do fish sleep?
While fish don't sleep in quite the same way as people, scientists believe they do enter a resting state. People are generally still, with eyes closed, during sleep. Most fish don't have eyelids, so they obviously can't close their eyes to go to sleep. And some fish do seem to stop moving when they sleep, but others cannot afford to stop moving. Tuna, for example, must stay in motion because they need to have water moving constantly over their gills to get oxygen. Some fish find a nook between rocks or in a coral reef to rest in. And others actually build a nest for sleeping. When it's ready for a rest, the parrotfish releases a jelly-like substance that surrounds its body, offering some protection while it dozes.
How is a porpoise different from a dolphin?
Both porpoises and dolphins are types of whales, they are closely related to one another. Porpoises are usually smaller, 4 to 6 feet, about 1 to 2 meters long, while dolphins average about 8 feet, 2.4 meters, in length. The snout of a porpoise is more rounded, and its teeth are flatter. A dolphin has a long snout and cone-shaped teeth. Dolphins have long been studied for their intelligence, they are very fast learners. For the enormous variety of sounds that they make to communicate, whistles, clicks, and squeaks, and for the tender way that they care for one another and sometimes for human beings. There have been many reports of dolphins saving the lives of people who were drowning or divers who were lost. The most familiar dolphin species is the bottlenose dolphin. Most dolphins in aquariums are this type. Like many dolphins, this animal is graceful and very playful. Its snout gives the impression that the dolphin is smiling when its mouth is open. They can often be spotted on the open sea, following ships and playfully leaping out of the water.
How do submarine pilots know where they are going when they are underwater?
If they are not too far below the surface, a periscope is used. This tall, rotating, tube-shaped instrument can be raised above the water's surface to view surroundings. Using a series of mirrors and lenses inside to relay images. Beyond that, submarines use sonar, sound waves, to make echo soundings of their surroundings. Transmitted sound waves are reflected off objects or the ocean floor. The time it takes for these sound waves to be reflected back indicates how far away things are located. The echoes are then converted into electrical signals that appear on a display screen, which gives a picture similar to that of an airport's radar screen of surrounding waters.
Why do we use money?
We use money as payment for goods or services. Today people use coins, banknotes, bills, checks, credit cards, and debit cards. The cards used at automatic teller machines, or ATMs, to pay for things. Before money was invented, you could only get something from another person by bartering or trading something else for it. It was hard to make even trades and the deal had to be made on the spot. The introduction of money offered people greater flexibility when trying to get goods or services. It made it possible to put standard values on things, and money could be saved and used for future purchases. A great variety of objects have served as money for different people around the world. Anything considered valuable by a group and important to its way of life can be used as money. Shells and feathers, furs and cloth, salt and cattle have all been used at one time or another as money, setting the standard by which the value of all other things were measured. From earliest times, precious metals like gold and silver were used as money because they were durable. Materials that could be easily handled and divided, and they were considered valuable by many groups of people. Carefully weighed amounts of these metals were used as money. A practice that led to the invention of coins in the 7th century BC in the kingdom of Lydia, what is now Turkey. Early metal coins were stamped with designs that showed their weight and value, similar to the coins we use today. Money bills or banknotes came into use around the 10th century in China. Because Chinese coins were so heavy, people started to leave them with merchants, who gave them written receipts that were sometimes used to buy things. The Chinese government soon took over the job of printing receipts that people could use as money. While they are just pieces of paper and not valuable themselves, banknotes became money because they represented valuable things like gold and silver kept in other places. Coins, too, eventually became symbols of value rather than actually being worth something. The coins that were once made of silver and other precious metals are now made of combinations of inexpensive metals. The bills, checks, and credit cards that we use today are likewise representative money used because of their convenience.
Are all snakes poisonous?
Snakes are among the most frightening animals to humans, and because of this fear many people would sooner try to destroy these animals than understand their benefits to the environment. Snakes are beneficial in that they eat pest insects and rodents, helping to control the populations of animals that can be nuisances to humans. Only about 1/10 of all snakes are venomous. And not all of the venomous snakes are dangerous, or even deadly, to humans. Most snakes are completely harmless. And poisonous snakes do not hunt people. They bite when they are handled, stepped on, or otherwise disturbed. Their venom is most often used on their prey, not on people. There are about 20 species of poisonous snakes in the United States. Mostly rattlesnakes, cottonmouths, also called water moccasins, coral snakes, and copperheads. Many venomous snakes, with coral snakes as one exception, are categorized as pit vipers because they have pits on their heads between their eyes and nostrils. These pits help the snakes detect heat, making it easier for them to locate prey. Most venomous snake bites are treatable and don't result in any lasting problems. The deaths that do occur from snake venom frequently happen because the person was unable to get to a hospital soon enough. If a snake bite occurs, try to get to a hospital as soon as possible. In the meantime, a bandage can be wrapped lightly around the area just above the bite. And the limb where the bite occurred should be moved as little as possible.
Which animal has the longest life?
The animal believed to have had the longest lifespan ever recorded was a Marian's tortoise that lived over 152 years. Several other types of tortoises have been known to live longer than 115 years. Clams also tend to live a very long time, with a quahog, pronounced quahog, living around 150 years and a deep-sea clam living around 100 years. The oldest person on record lived 122 years.
How do boa constrictors kill their prey?
Injecting animals with venom is not the only method used by snakes to control their prey. One group of snakes, called the constrictors, do not produce venom but are every bit as deadly to the animals they hunt. The constrictors, including boa constrictors and pythons, use the powerful muscles in their bodies to squeeze the life out of their prey. They coil themselves around the animal they've caught, squeezing until its blood can no longer circulate. Boa constrictors eat mostly birds and mice, and they can grow to be around 14 feet, 4.3 meters, long. The female boa is among the few snakes whose young develop within her body. She gives birth to live snakes, perhaps as many as 50 at one time. Pythons, which live in parts of Asia, Africa, and Australia, are among the biggest snakes in the world. with the larger species getting as long as 30 feet, 9 meters.
Do snakes have slimy skin?
Looking at a snake, many people might assume that its skin feels wet and slimy. But snakes, like all reptiles, actually have dry, scaly skin. This tough outer covering helps reptiles keep necessary amounts of moisture in their bodies. Some snakes have a ridge in the middle of their scales, but many are smooth to the touch. Depending on its external conditions, if it's lying in a cold, shady spot or basking on a hot, sunny rock, its skin will either feel cool or warm to the touch.
How can snakes swallow animals larger than their own bodies?
Snakes do not always eat animals whose bodies are wider than their own. But they are certainly capable of it. And because they swallow their prey whole without bothering to chew it up first, they need to be equipped with special characteristics for getting food to their stomachs. First of all, snakes have unique jaws. The lower jawbone is only loosely connected to the upper jaw, and the lower jaw is made up of two bones that are connected by an elastic, or stretchy, tissue. So the snake can open its mouth very wide, several times as big as its own head, accommodating a relatively large animal. Also, the two sides of a snake's jaw move separately from one another. The snake sinks its fangs, which are curved backward, into its prey. It moves first one side of the jaw backward and then the next, gradually pulling the prey into its mouth. It can take a snake 30 minutes to an hour to swallow an animal. During that time, its trachea, or windpipe, gets pushed forward, out of its mouth. So the snake can continue to breathe during the long swallowing process. The snake's flexible ribs then expand to allow the body to widen as the food makes its way to the stomach and intestines. Given that eating is such a time-consuming and body-expanding process, it is perhaps fortunate that a snake doesn't need to eat very often. Snakes may eat once a week or once a month. And some large snakes in captivity have been known to go several months between meals. During colder seasons, snakes are dormant or inactive and can go much longer than usual without eating.
Will I die someday?
Because all living things must die when they complete their life cycle. And because no person has ever escaped death, it is certain that you will die someday. But because medical science has eliminated or brought under control many of the diseases that once kept people from reaching old age, it is likely that you will live a very long time. Today, the average life expectancy of a man living in the United States is around 74 years. the average American woman will reach about 80 years of age. And because medical science continues to improve healthcare and is studying old age and trying to find ways to minimize its effects, the average lifespan is expected to climb higher still. For people fortunate enough to live in a wealthy, industrialized nation like those in North America and Western Europe, their chances of living a longer life are improved by those countries' high-quality living conditions, food supply, and medical care. Your genes, inherited from your parents, also play a role in your lifespan. In addition to determining things like your hair color and height, your genes can also affect your ability to avoid certain diseases or conditions. Finally, your behavior and lifestyle have a lot to do with how long you'll live. Eating right, getting enough sleep, exercising, and seeking regular medical care can all contribute to a longer life.
Why is there wax in my ears?
Located in the 1-inch passageway, or canal, of your outer ear are 4,000 special glands that make wax. Because it's sticky, earwax catches dust, dirt, and other things before they can travel farther into the ear. As you chew and talk, the muscles of your face move the lining of the ear canal. And old wax eventually works its way out of the ear. It is not a good idea to clean your ears with a stick or swab, because that can push earwax against the eardrum and cause damage. A few people produce too much earwax, which causes blockages that reduce hearing. When this happens, a doctor should remove it.
Can a boy and girl be twins?
Usually a woman's ovaries, the reproductive organs that produce the eggs, release just one egg each month. If that egg is fertilized by a man's sperm, then a baby eventually begins to grow in the uterus of the woman. Once in a while, however, 2 eggs are released at the same time. Both eggs may become fertilized by 2 different sperm, and then 2 babies will grow. The babies will develop at the same time, and they will be born together as twins. But unlike identical twins, these fraternal twins, as they are called, will not have identical genes, because they have developed from different eggs and sperm. Fraternal twins can be as different as any 2 siblings can be, they just happen to share their mother's uterus. Fraternal twins can consist of 1 boy and 1 girl, or 2 girls, or 2 boys. They may look alike, but they may not. They may grow up to have similar interests, or they may pursue very different paths.
Why isn't there school during the summer?
Our 10-month school year from September through June developed when most people still lived and worked on farms. Parents needed their children to help out at home during the growing season, so there was no school in the summer. The 10-month school year became a tradition. Even now, when most people no longer live and work on farms, the traditional school year has remained, and other traditions were built around it. A summer vacation from school became a tradition, too. Allowing children to go on special trips with their families. The summer tourist industry depended on family vacationers in order to make money, and on students to do the work with summer jobs. But studies have shown that the 2 to 3 months that children have off in the summer can cause problems. A lot of learning is forgotten over the long summer, and a lot of time is wasted relearning it during review time when school begins in the fall. Because our society is no longer an agricultural one, and because almost all institutions operate throughout the year, many educators have been looking into the idea of year-round schools. There are about 2,700 year-round schools in the United States today, and studies show that most of their students learn more than those who attend traditional schools. Continuous education appears to be better than interrupted education. Children at most year-round schools attend the same number of days 180 as children at regular schools. But instead of a long summer break, they have shorter, more frequent breaks throughout the year. These breaks, called intersessions, are often used by students who need extra help or who want to learn more about things that especially interest them. The number of year-round schools is growing, which may indicate the start of a new tradition.
What happens to garbage that is recycled?
Many communities have trash recycling programs to try to reduce the amount of garbage that must go to landfills. Certain types of trash, things made of materials like metal, glass, plastic, paper, and cardboard, can usually be processed and reused. Once cleaned and sorted, metal cans, for instance, can be melted down and poured into molds that make new cans or parts for things like cars and kitchen appliances. Glass jars and bottles are cleaned, too, and sorted into colors: clear, green, brown, and more. They are then smashed into tiny pieces that can be used to make bricks and paving materials. Or they are melted down and poured into molds to form new jars and bottles. Plastics cause the biggest garbage problem. All sorts of containers and other products are made from plastic, but only some types can be recycled. Plastic doesn't rot or decompose like many other kinds of trash, which means that when it goes into a landfill, it is there to stay for a very long time. When many plastics are burned, they produce dangerous chemical vapors that pollute the air. The kinds of plastics that can be recycled are cleaned, melted, and poured into molds to make new plastic objects, like pipes, insulation, and office equipment. Because so many trees are cut down every year to make paper for books, magazines, newspapers, and other products. It is important to recycle paper items so new paper can be made from them. During the recycling process, waste paper is chopped into very fine pieces, mixed with water, boiled, and made into a thick soup called pulp. This pulp may be washed and bleached to make it white or left a natural color. Pulp is then spread out onto large screens that allow water to drip through. Next, giant rollers squeeze the pulp, removing more water. Once the new paper is dry, it is wound onto huge spools and later cut into sheets of paper. Other paper products like cardboard boxes are made in similar ways. Wood fibers and other plant materials are also used in paper making.
Are mushrooms plants?
Fungi, which include mushrooms, molds, and mildews, are not really plants. They have no real roots, leaves, or stems, and contain no chlorophyll with which to make their own food. That's why they aren't green and don't need sunlight. Fungi feed mostly on dead plant and animal matter, which helps keep the environment clean and enriches the soil. Some fungi feed on live plants and animals, though, often harming their hosts. A fungal disease called rust, for instance, can completely ruin the wheat crop it has infected. Mushrooms are the visible parts of certain fungal, basidium, growths that live underground, where they feed on dead and decaying matter. When these fungi are ready to reproduce, they send up mushrooms, fruiting bodies that carry spores for reproduction. Spores form on the gills of a mushroom underneath its cap. Within a few days they shoot out and scatter, and the fruiting body dies. Some of the billions of spores released will develop into new fungi. Autumn is the best time to spot mushrooms and other fungal fruiting bodies.
A better question would be, how do plants make their own food?
Green plants get nourishment through a chemical process called photosynthesis, which uses sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water to make simple sugars. Those simple sugars are then changed into starches, proteins, or fats, which provide a plant with all the energy it needs to perform life processes and to grow. Generally, sunlight, along with carbon dioxide, enters through the surface of a plant's leaves. The sunlight and carbon dioxide travel to special food-making cells, palisade, deeper in the leaves. Each of these cells contain a green substance called chlorophyll, which gives plants their green color that traps light energy, allowing food making to take place. Also located in the middle layer of leaves are special cells that make up a plant's transportation systems. Tube-like bundles of cells called xylem tissue carry water and minerals throughout a plant, from its roots to its outermost leaves. Phloem cells, on the other hand, transport the plant's food supply sugar. Dissolved in water from its manufacturing site in leaves to all other cells. The plant food that we buy in stores is simply a mixture of minerals that plants need to grow well. These include nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Usually a plant is able to get these things from the soil in which it grows, drawing them up with water through its roots. But gardeners, farmers, and other plant growers add to this natural mineral supply so plants can thrive.
Why do I have to clean my room?
Our parents have the big job of taking care of your home, and it's a lot more work than it may seem. But you can help out by taking care of your room and your own things. Everyone needs to work together in a family to make things run smoothly. It's important to pick up your toys and clothes and other things and put them back where they belong after you use them. This cleanup keeps them in good shape so they won't be stepped on and ruined, or cause you to trip and fall. You will also be able to find them the next time you need them. When you take care of your things, it shows that you are responsible and will treat future possessions with the same care, which helps when you want something new. At a certain age, most kids are asked by their parents to take care of their rooms further by dusting and vacuuming. Such additional responsibilities are a part of growing up. If you lived outside, a big gust of wind would be all that you needed to get rid of the dust. But because your room is in an enclosed space, the dust that builds up there has to be removed in other ways. Keeping your room clean and dust-free helps your lungs by giving you cleaner air to breathe. It cuts down on allergies, too, because a lot of people are allergic to dust mites, tiny creatures that live among dust. And dusting and vacuuming make things like carpeting and furniture look nice and last longer.
Why do soldiers salute one another?
It is believed that the tradition of saluting raising the right hand to the forehead got its start many centuries ago, during the time when knights fought in full suits of armor. When two knights met, they had to raise the visors on their metal helmets to identify themselves and to see if they were friends or enemies. The motion associated with lifting the visor continued when two fighting men met. Even when soldiers no longer wore armor, this behavior turned into the salute. The salute became a sign of recognition and respect, used especially by military men and women when in the presence of a military superior, someone who ranks above them.
How big is the sun?
The sun's diameter, its widest measurement across, is estimated at 865,400 miles, 1,393,294 kilometers. Its mass is 332,000 times that of Earth. Compared with the billions of stars in the universe, our Sun is considered average in size. With half of the other stars bigger and half smaller.
What should I do if I find a gun?
Studies have shown that hundreds, perhaps even thousands, of children and teenagers are accidentally killed by guns in the United States each year. Millions of American kids have access to guns in their homes. People use guns all the time in movies and television shows. And the action scenes in these shows make guns look exciting and powerful. What these shows can't really convey is the massive, painful destruction an exploding bullet causes when it hits a person's body. While many kids understand that, in real life, guns can be very dangerous and can cause great harm, most still find guns fascinating. If an adult is supervising and your parents have given their approval, it's okay to look at and even touch an unloaded gun. But if you are alone or with other kids and you come across a gun, remember that it is not a toy and should not be handled. Guns should never be pointed at another person, even if you intend it as a joke. If you find a gun in your own house, a friend's house, or elsewhere, as tempting as it might be to play with it, remember the damage that guns can cause and leave it alone. If you're away from home, leave right away and tell your parents what happened. Your parents may be upset and worried that you found a gun, but they will be very glad that you told them about it because then they can help you stay safe.
How hot is the sun?
The temperature of the sun's surface is thought to be about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. 5,500 degrees Celsius. That's more than 50 times the temperature required to boil water. The center of the sun is much hotter. Scientists have estimated that the center of the sun is 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. 15 million degrees Celsius.
What is the biggest muscle in my body?
The largest muscle in the human body is the gluteus maximus. That's the big muscle that makes up most of your bottom. The muscle is large because it has a big job to do. It moves the thigh bone or femur, the largest bone in the body. Some of the smallest muscles in the human body are those that move the eyeball.
What are tonsils?
Tonsils are large bumps of special tissue located on either side of your throat at the back of your tongue. They are part of your lymphatic system. which helps your body defend itself against disease-causing germs and other foreign substances. Lymph glands, located in many parts of your body, make a special type of white blood cell. Called lymphocytes, they also trap infectious invaders before they can enter your bloodstream. Your tonsils are tiny when you are born, and they grow until you are about 6 or 7 years old. They begin to shrink in size after that. So your tonsils are biggest when you are just starting out in school. A time when you are exposed to more new germs than usual. When you breathe in disease-causing germs, many of them are stopped in your tonsils and in other lymphatic tissue located around your mouth and throat in order to protect your lungs. But filtering out all those germs may cause your tonsils to become infected, as a result, a condition known as tonsillitis. Tonsillitis usually results in a sore throat, fever, and difficulty swallowing. Because your tonsils grow larger, or swell, when they are infected. As you grow older and your immunity to common germs increases, you should have less trouble with your tonsils. But some people have so many tonsil infections that their doctor recommends the tonsils be removed. A doctor cuts them away during a short operation in a hospital.
Why did dinosaurs become extinct?
Scientists do not know for sure why dinosaurs became extinct. They have many different theories, some of which explain the extinction as something that happened gradually over a long period of time. Other theories suggest that a single catastrophe caused the dinosaur population to die off rather suddenly. And some scientists believe the dinosaur population had been gradually getting smaller and then was finished off by some dramatic event. Some who believe gradual changes brought about the dinosaurs' end suggest that as more and more mammals appeared, the dinosaurs had trouble competing with them for food sources. And these mammals may have eaten dinosaur eggs in such large numbers that fewer and fewer baby dinosaurs were born. Some experts believe that widespread disease killed off dinosaurs. Many suggest that gradual climate changes from continuously warm, mild weather to seasonal variations with hot summers and cold winters affected the dinosaurs. Scientists are not sure whether dinosaurs were warm-blooded or cold-blooded, and there may have been some of each. If they were cold-blooded, meaning that their body temperature changed depending on the temperature of their surroundings, it would have been difficult for such large animals to survive extreme temperatures. Smaller cold-blooded creatures can burrow under the ground, for example, to escape both heat and cold. But most dinosaurs were simply too large to do that. The scientists who believe that dinosaurs became extinct after a major catastrophe point to evidence that suggests a huge asteroid, perhaps several miles wide, hit Earth. The impact of such an object would have created enormous clouds of dust and other debris. The heat of impact would have started fires over a great area. between the dust clouds and the smoke from the fires. Sunlight would have been blocked, maybe for several months. A lack of sunlight would have caused a dramatic drop in temperature, and much plant life would have died. Without plants, the plant-eating dinosaurs and many other animals would have died. Without the plant-eating dinosaurs and those other animals, the meat-eating dinosaurs would eventually die as well. Some scientists argue that not all dinosaurs became extinct. The striking similarities between modern birds and some kinds of dinosaurs have led some people to believe that birds are living descendants of dinosaurs.